Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a very interesting figure to take a look at, and I must say, instantly I regret buying the figure, but that is besides the point. This is a random Velociraptor blue figure that I found on Aliexpress. I've actually seen the figure floating around for quite some time, never pulled the trigger on it though. I always thought about buying it because it looks kind of cool in the promotional images when I see it online, but I just never bothered to pick it up. And they actually have two different versions. I've only ordered one here because they have a grayish version, but I didn't think that the grayish version, which would have been actually more accurate to Velociraptor Blue, looked all that great in the promotional images. I felt like this kind of almost like a purplish version looked a little better, but honestly, in person, it's not very good. And to show you that, let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt actually does sport some nice looking sculpt and detail. The paint job, I think, really messes it all up for the most part because the paint looks horribly sloppy. But the actual sculpt and detail on here on the head looks pretty nice for the most part. You have some nice skin texturing, and some areas, I think, of the head, as far as the paint, does look okay. Like right here in the palate area and even in the eye socket area, looks alright. There's some sloppy paint randomly showing up here on the lower jaw, and the blue stripe is just awful. But for the most part, I think some areas up here on the face look okay, just not that great. The eye is awful. For some reason, the eye sticks out like a mile from the head, so he instantly looks super, super goofy. But the eye paint itself doesn't look very good either. I feel like it just looks really, really weird. It's like an orangish coloration, then a yellow, and then a black slit, but the black slit just looks about as ridiculously strange as it could possibly get. So just generally the eye, not very good if you ask me. It does have an articulated jaw, which kind of works pretty good, honestly, so that is a plus. But you'll notice instantly when we open the mouth, the teeth, you almost can't even see them. They're almost non-existent. So once you look in here, you can see the teeth, but they are extremely small for some reason. It's almost like the Velociraptor has dentures, and he got a size of dentures that are way too small for him. But you can see that the teeth kind of look like they're painted sort of okay, but they're just a little bit too thick, I think, as far as the paint goes. But since the teeth are so small, I don't really think it really would have made too much of a difference. The inside of the mouth, you can see the sculpt work in there is also almost non-existent on the skin flap. They just kind of give it a few couple of lines right there, and they don't even extend it down the entire way to the lower jaw, so that also is a downside. You can see the tongue is in there, but it's not really textured or anything, which is okay. I mean, it can still look decent and has a nice gloss coat over it, so that doesn't look that bad. It just could have been better. You can see a little bit of detail up there on the inside of the mouth, which also looks fairly decent. You can pick up on the fact that the nostrils are up here on the snout. Again, the paint is horribly inconsistent, so you can see that right there. The eye also, speaking of eyes, actually looks a little better over here on this side, but the fact that the eye sticks so far out from the head just really, really bothers me. It has like googly eyes. Moving down here into the neck, the sculpt and detail continues to look fairly decent in this area. Lots of really nice creasing. The blue stripe, though, completely kills any momentum that some of this paint could have had. Coming down here into the body, you can see the spinal column of the dinosaur, and overall some fairly nice looking skin texture throughout. I think that does look pretty nice overall as far as that detailing goes. Very nicely sculpted out arm here, nice Jurassic Park style raptor arm, beautiful scoots down the fingers, as well as the fingernails are painted. They're painted with a black, and they do have a nice gloss coat, so they shine pretty realistically. Nice detailing over here, the legs pushing into the body a little bit right there, so you can see the skin kind of reacting to that movement. You can sort of see the hip bone elaborated a little bit right there. You can see some muscle tone here in both the thigh and calf. The legs are really... I'm not really sure how I feel about them. They're kind of iffy. You come down here into the foot. The foot looks okay. Nice dry brushing they've given it, though. But again, very, very inconsistent paint. That looks pretty terrible right there. If you look at it from the side, it looks all right. But then once you come up above, you can see that there's an entire area that was almost completely missed as far as the paint goes. You have some nice detailing there in the toe of the sickle claw toe, but the toenails themselves are painted pretty nicely with a nice gloss coat as well added to them. And then coming up here, You can see some more nice sculpt and detail throughout the tail as we lead out the tail, which has an unreasonably sharp turn. It comes up, has like a hump, and then comes down, and then does like an extremely sharp curve. As well as this arm over here looks very strange. It almost looks like it was trying to do the chicken dance and has its arm out away from the body. Maybe it was trying to mimic some other velociraptor or something that I guess had feathers and calling it a bird or a chicken. I have no idea, but it looks really weird. But you can see that the actual detailing up here in the neck looks pretty nice, and there are some areas, like I think this side of the head in general, looks fairly nice as far as the paintwork goes, and sculpt-wise goes, even down here into the neck, but then that arm is super weird. I don't understand that at all. You can also see how this leg is kind of pushing into the body. They're bunching the skin up. So there is some nice areas of detailing to the figure, but then there are also some really awkward areas. The foot over here does appear to be painted quite a bit nicer than what we had seen on the previous foot. So that's good news for this foot at least. Nicely painted nails as well. And the sculpting of the leg looks alright, I guess. And then coming back out into the tail again, some more nice looking sculpt and detail until we get to that ridiculous curve out here on the end of the tail. The blue stripe is just the worst. It is absolutely awful all over the figure in every area. The underside, though, has a nice creamy color to it and sports some pretty decent detailing. I feel like a nice dark wash would have helped the underside as far as that goes, but regardless, it's kind of hit or miss as far as this figure goes. It has a few sort of decent looking areas and a few not so good looking areas. Sculpt wise has some decent looking areas, not so good looking areas. So just generally the figure is, I'm not really sure. I don't know how to feel about it yet. One part of the figure though that I can definitely tell you how I feel about is the balancing feature of the figure. And by balancing I mean it doesn't do it at all. It does not stand up no matter what way I position it. I think this arm is meant to hold it up, maybe. I'm pretty sure that's what it looked like in the promotional images. However, the arm is horribly bowed and warped in right now, so it just kind of falls on his face. I was waiting for that. It took a little longer than I expected. But again, it doesn't balance at all. It definitely is a downside, and that's kind of like what you expect from figures like this. I don't really ever expect them to balance, but when I had seen that it had the arm that sort of held it up, I thought that it probably would, but it does not. It definitely does not. So we're going to have to lean it against the back here to try to get a measurement on the figure. Now, I will say the Raptor is quite large overall, so that's a plus at least. It's got some pretty good size, so for a length, you are looking at around 13 inches in length, or about 33, maybe closing in on 33.5 centimeters, and for a height, about 6¼ inches to the top of the head, or about 16 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Dilophosaurus, and Robert Muldoon, next to a gigantic Velociraptor, which would have easily killed poor Mr. Muldoon when he loves his Velociraptors so much. But again, next to these figures, you should be able to see quite easily that the Raptor does sport some pretty good size, and I think with a repaint and maybe a little repositioning of the limbs, it could look okay. I also think you'd probably have to resculpt the eyes completely, as the eyes sticking out of the head on this figure just look awful, but size-wise, again, sporting a decent size, it's definitely at least one impressive aspect of the figure. So this random, unnamed, unknown Velociraptor figure from Aliexpress is not very good, and in fact, I feel like I kind of bit the bullet here just to get it here and look at it with you guys, as it was just something different, something I thought could be potentially pretty cool, so I thought I'd get a hold of it, review it for you guys, maybe kind of show you guys a new really cool Velociraptor figure you didn't know about, but it's not exactly that. It's not very good, and in fact, it's almost awful. I would say it's very close to closing in on awful. The detailing looks okay, but the paint is so bad on it in most areas that it doesn't really shine through on the sculpt. It doesn't show you how nice the sculpt could potentially be. The head sculpt, I think the paint up there does kind of show off how nice the sculpt could kind of be in a certain way. However, the googly eye look to the eyes sticking out of the side of the head, that's just awful. I don't know what they were thinking with that area, and generally the eye paint, at least on the left side of the face, is terrible. The right side looks a little better. Then you get to the sculpting of some of the positioning of the body, like the arm on the right side is just super awkward. I don't understand why they thought that would be a good way to sculpt the arm. Very small teeth as well, look really ridiculous. And generally, I feel like there are a lot of areas that are a downside as far as the figure goes sculpt-wise. But then there's some nice areas like skin texture-wise. It's got some nice detailing in that aspect. And even like the detailing in the toes and everything looks pretty decent in certain parts. But the paint kind of like missing areas of the toes and the paint of the eye looking pretty bad. The blue stripe down the side is awful. Like potentially the worst blue stripe I've ever seen on any imitation Velociraptor blue figure ever. The jaw does articulate pretty nicely, which is a plus there, but other than that, again, the figure is pretty awful. It doesn't stand at all. It has no balance whatsoever. I don't know why I do the things I do. I don't know why I bought this figure. I kind of expected it to be bad, and I actually paid like $20 or maybe even a little more for it, so it was not the best decision. Kind of one of those, oh, why did you do that kind of moments, but maybe with a repaint it could look okay, I guess. Regardless, I at least saved you guys the effort and time of wasting money and purchasing this potentially, because it's not very good, and I definitely don't recommend anybody following my footsteps and picking this up. If you want to, however, I will include a link in the description to where you can on Aliexpress. However, I definitely don't recommend doing it because the figure as a whole is not really all that good. But if you choose to, again, link will be in the description. Make sure before you go off making that bad decision that you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.